We'll move on to the to CARE's 2016 annual report. Today, I'm not going to give all the history of what's gone on, and Fareed will cover a little bit of that. But as you know, we're considering whether the 2016 report demonstrates that the program is in compliance, particularly whether it's making satisfactory progress on the key goal that was in the AB 2398 of continuous and meaningful improvement. Things have changed now with the passage of 1158 if signed by the governor, but that's for the future. I want to, before Fareed launches into his presentation, I want to thank Bob and Brennan and everyone at CARE for the cooperation that you've shown and the efforts that you've been making throughout the years on this program. So continued thanks.
Right. Thank you, Howard. Good morning. I'd like to start by giving you a brief background about the program. AB 2398 established the first mandatory corporate stewardship program in the U.S. and requires that the stewardship organization demonstrate continuous and meaningful improvement in recycling and diversion of post-consumer carpet. CARE, the stewardship organization, is responsible for designing and implementing the program. The Carpet Stewardship Plan, which expired on December 31st, 2016, requires a goal of 16% recycle output rate by the end of last year. CalRecycle is responsible for approving or disapproving plans, reviewing annual reports, enforcing legal requirements, and evaluating compliance and goal achievements. CARE submitted its 5th annual report on June 30th of this year, covering program performance in calendar year 2016. As required, an independent financial audit was also included in the annual report. CalRecycle reviewed the independent financial audit. All previous independent financial audit findings have been resolved. One example of a financial audit finding in 2015 was inadequate communication between CARE operational and financial staff. Another example was not requiring attestation letters from collectors, sorters, and entrepreneurs receiving subsidies. All these financial audits have been resolved. For 2016, there were no financial audit findings. I would like now to transition from the independent financial audit findings to CalRecycle's findings. During our review of 2013, 14, and 15 annual reports, we found CARE out of compliance due to lack of continuous and meaningful improvement. As we will see in the next few slides, 2016 was also a challenging year for the program. After reviewing the 2016 annual report, CalRecycle made two main findings. Finding 1, CARE failed to meet the recycling goals set forth in its plan and failed to demonstrate continuous and meaningful improvement in diversion and to meet the other goals in the plan. The recycle output increased slightly from 10% of discard in 2015 to 11% in 2016. However, the required goal in the plan was 16% of discard by the end of 2016. Finding 1 continues, source reduction. The program uses the average weight of carpet as its primary source reduction metric. Beginning in the third quarter of 2016, source reduction was negatively impacted because the average weight of carpet increased from 4.2 to 4.39 pounds per square yard. Recyclability. CARE defines recyclability in its plan as 1, ease of accessibility to recycling and processing facilities. 2, the ease by which carpet can be separated and processed. In the 2016 annual report, CARE did not report on improvement in accessibility to recycling and processing facility, and it did not address the ease by which carpet can be separated into component parts. However, there is one metric that CARE uses to monitor recyclability. It is yield. The yield increased slightly in 2016 to 35.1% of gross collection compared to 33.8% in 2015. However, this rate is still 6% below the high of 41.1% achieved in 2013. Reported diversion. Reported diversion decreased from 73 million pounds, which is 21% of discards, in 2015 to 61 million pounds, which is 18% of discard in 2016. Reuse. Reuse increased by 51% in 2016 to 928,000 pounds compared to 602,000 pounds in 2015. While an improvement, this represents less than 0.5% of carpet discard during the year. This minor success in the 2016 annual report does not overshadow the significant lack of improvement in recycle output. Energy recovery. As you can see from the slide, overall the recovery decreased in 2016. Finding 2, consumers do not have reasonable access to recycling service in all counties. Only 33 of 58 counties were served by at least one CARE-funded collection site at the end of 2016. CARE estimates that there are approximately 200 additional private collection containers statewide that feed into CARE program via independent collector sorter entrepreneurs, but these are not set up directly by CARE, nor do they receive assistance from CARE. It is not clear what type and quantities of carpets are accepted at these sites and what level of convenience these sites offer consumers. The annual report does not provide adequate information on these types and quantities of carpet that are accepted at these sites, and therefore their performance cannot be evaluated, nor can these sites be counted as part of accessible convenience sites. Additionally, these sites are not found on CARE's interactive map. Other issues to consider. CARE did expand its marketing and education and outreach efforts and funding in 2016, taking a number of actions to increase education and outreach, especially to retailers. Additionally, CARE awarded grants and made other market development efforts to expand use of post-consumer carpet material in new products. CARE should develop metrics to evaluate the effectiveness of each of its targeted outreach activities, such as retail visits, installer contractor engagement, contact with local governments, and efficacy of drop-off sites in carpet collection. The staff report lays out two options for the director. Staff is recommending option 1, to direct waste Evaluation and Enforcement Branch to further investigate STAR's finding and proceed with enforcement action as appropriate as described in option 1. That concludes my presentation. Now I'll turn it back to Howard. Thank you.
Thank you, Fareed. We'll open it up to comments and questions. Bob, I don't know if you want to make any comments? You want to wait? Okay. Anyone have questions or comments? Heidi?
Morning again. Heidi Sanborn with the California Product Stewardship Council. We want to thank CARE again for all that has worked, and we always want to be appreciative for the things that work. There's been a lot of effort that's been put in, but we do agree with the staff recommendation. There just isn't enough transparency, and I just want to remind everybody this is not an internalized cost of doing business. This is public fee money. We have every right to know what is happening with this program, and I'm sorry that it's taken so long and taken so much of CalRecycle's time to try and find out what's really been happening with it. So we urge you to adopt the recommendation by staff. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone else, so Bob.
Good morning. There's a lot of things I love about my job, and working with people and tackling tough challenges are a key part of that. This is not, okay? Probably stating the obvious, but I promised myself I would stay positive this morning, so I want to share with you what I think are some positive thoughts. I don't necessarily agree with some of the findings, the way they were articulated this morning. That's probably not a surprise, but everybody, you know, you ask everybody in this room, people interpret things differently. They have different perspectives. So what I'd like to do is start by saying first, thank you to the CalRecycle staff, because despite the challenges that we face, we have a good working relationship and we have good communications going. And I want to acknowledge the fact that we've been meeting with CalRecycle on and off almost every week since about June of this year, and they've been very productive conversations to develop understanding, I hope, going in both directions. So a few thoughts. Number one, subsidies. Subsidy payouts are increasing, and that means we are moving more materials. I realize that the focus of your hearing today is on 2016, but you know, you can't always just take a program and cut it into nice little chunks. You got to look at the trends and where they're headed. A lot of investment was made in the fourth quarter of 15 and 16 to lay the pipe for accomplishments that come. Everybody knows if you try to build a house, despite the best schedules that you put together, you get delays in material delivery, you get delays due to weather, and nothing ever turns out the way you want it to. So we've had, unfortunately, a couple recyclers that have run into some buzzsaws. You know, they've lost output because of equipment issues, because of equipment failures, and we are being impacted by the China Green Sword program. In fact, that's going to disrupt the entire global plastics recycling industry, and folks in Washington right now are spending a lot of time and effort trying to figure out what does that mean, and it's probably going to take a few years to retool that. Carpet is no exception in terms of those impact. Our carpet recycled output has been on a steady upward slope since Q3 of 2015, which was a low point. I encourage you, when we publish the Q2 review, which we'll have with CalRecycle this afternoon, look at the recycled output trend chart, and you'll see, given the seasonal variations which tie to the sales of carpet, it is on a steady, solid upward slope. Education and outreach has increased. I know Fareed referred to that. We have now contacted directly over 90% of the approximately 1,700 retailers that are qualified retailers in the state of California. We started out with a list of over 4,000, and it basically took a year just to scrub the list for those people that are out of business, don't handle carpet, or in the carpet cleaning business, not the retail business, and those sorts of things. And more importantly, we have now had face-to-face training contact with over 700 installers in the state under our supply house tabling and training programs. Grant funds have been flowing. More than 80% of those grant funds have been awarded to stay within the state of California. Our original target was 50%. So we're trying to build that capacity in the state, but again, it takes time to do that. The backing material that used to all go to the landfill, sometimes you hear that referred to as calcium carbonate, backing residual. We have a new term for it. It's called PC4. Stands for post-consumer carpet calcium carbonate, PC4. PC4 is starting to flow. In 2015, no calcium carbonate was used in any kind of recycling operations. In 2000, we are up 100% versus 2016 and essentially zero in 2015, with additional pounds starting to grow. Yes, reuse is a small component today, but it was up over 50% in 2000 versus 2015, and we're talking about new incentives to further drive reuse of materials. Fareed, you referred to the private collection sites, of which there are 256 in the state of, the total is 256. 42 now are care sites. And while for competitive reasons we don't want to release the locations of those sites cover more than 70% of the 70% of those sites, those 256 sites, both the private and the public sites, cover more than 90% of the population of the state of California. Part of the new plan will be a proposal to put in place a convenience study to understand what does it mean to provide convenient collection for post-consumer carpet. Because the only thing I can say with a degree of confidence is it's very different from a bottle or a can of paint or a battery, okay? Tile recycle rates are up, and there's a new incentive going to be put in place to further enhance that. We launched a program called Double Green. It's a new trademark for care that reflects products that contain two post-consumer recycle elements, post-consumer carpet content and another post-consumer content from the state of California. My best example is rubber ADA compliant transition mats for buildings. Had a lot of rubber in them. They now have both tire recycled rubber and post-consumer PC4 from carpet. That's a market that looks like it's growing and expanding very nicely. Took us over a year to get the work done, to put all that in place, to get the trademark in place. Now we're using that as a tool to both educate and sell those products going forward. The new plan being finalized right now and will be adjusted to comply with 1158, assuming that it gets signed, and I think everybody expects that it will. We'll have new subsidies. These are already baked into the new plan. We'll just have to make some adjustments now for 1158. There are new subsidies. There are more grant funds. There's an additional increases in educational outreach. There are new resources being added, including hiring a full-time program director who will reside in the state of California. And I'm pleased to share with you, I sent off a communication this morning to our recycling community that effective October 1st, we will launch a new Nylon 6 subsidy, a pilot subsidy on Nylon 6 specifically to create demand in the marketplace to pull that material through. It's a Tier 2 subsidy, which means we're going to the end users of this material who make products, much like we did with the very successful PET Tier 2 subsidy program. And that, by the way, was one of a number of recommendations made by the California Council on Carpet Recycling that have been adopted and are part of the new plan going forward. I have to admit we did have a decrease in one of our metrics. It was mentioned by Fareed, and that is we saw a decrease in the amount of material going to energy recovery. Not a surprise, because the goal has always been people are going to ship material to the highest value outlet and only default to a landfill or energy if they have no other alternative. And when you collect carpet, somewhere between 8 and 15% of what you collect cannot be recycled or reused. Contamination, small parts, can't identify the face fiber content because of mixes. So we have to have responsible outlets for that material, and that's where it goes. But it was down 29%, 15 versus 16, and I appreciate that being acknowledged, Fareed. So overall, on the energy side, I want to reiterate in the new plan that we will also be eliminating subsidies for any energy-related activities. We've never paid for waste energy. We have paid for cement kilns and CAF. Those will be eliminated in terms of the subsidy program in the new plan going forward, assuming it gets accepted by CalRecycle. So overall, I'm going to say to you, I've always been an optimistic individual, and I'd say overall, there is continuous growth and meaningful progress in this program. It may be slower than a lot of people want to see. There's a lot of factors outside of our control, but we are gaining traction. We had 3 major disruptions to carpet recycling, 2 of which were this year. We had a recycler, had a massive failure of an electrical system that shut them down for a number of days. They scrambled to get portable generators in place to come back up so they didn't lose output, but that set us back a little bit. We have a second recycler that through a CARE grant procured new equipment. Unfortunately, just like when you build your house and stuff doesn't arrive on time, the equipment was not delivered on time. It now has been delivered and it's not running properly. It has to be retooled or engineered so that you can get the line to line out and do what it's supposed to do. So we have to adjust to those things. But overall, I'm more excited about what's coming, okay? We have expansion driven in part by grants of a number of our recyclers that will expand recycling output capacity for both type 1 fiber output and the PC4 material, plus now the new tier 2 nylon 6 recycling subsidy. We have several startups. XT Green, you've all heard about XT Green for a number of years. XT Green has a facility in Rancho Cucamonga. They're in the initial stages of getting equipment delivered and installed, and we're hopeful that they'll be up and running by about March or April of next year. Of course, when they start it up, probably it's not going to go the way they want it to, and there'll have to be a little re-engineering that takes place, but that's the nature of this technology. And then there was a recent announcement that Aquafil will be building a brand new nylon 6 processing facility, which we hope and expect to be up and running about July of next year. And unlike XT Green, which is new to the world technology, never been done before, Aquafil will be using technology that they already practice in Europe. So, you know, we hope that will be a smooth startup. Yes, it takes time and usually more than we'd like to, but I would like to say that there has been a steady hand guiding this program going forward, and those that have worked with me over the years know I have a motto when it comes to recycling. That is, success is perseverance for one more minute. And Lord knows there's a lot of people in this country, both inside and outside California, that have been persevering, and some of them suffering financially pretty intensively. But we are making progress, and I think that perseverance is going to show continued growth in that recycled output in 2017. So thanks for the opportunity to make the comments.
Thanks very much, Bob. I want to just respond to, or indicate a couple things. One, I do appreciate the ongoing dialogue that we've had with CARE. It has been intensive, and I think it's covered a lot of good ground, at least in terms of making sure we do understand each other and the concerns that you have and that we have. So we look forward to seeing what comes in on the plan whenever that's submitted. You mentioned National Sword, and of course you didn't really mention the drop in oil prices, which is also part and parcel of this, and we're obviously well aware of that and concerned on many, many fronts about the impacts of those on markets in general. If anything, I think that argues for the development of more processing and recycling infrastructure, certainly within the U.S., hopefully within California. So that's been a constant theme for CalRecycle as well. Beyond that, I'll just say that most of what you talked about is changes that have been put into place late in 2016 or that are coming in 2017, 2018. There's hopeful improvements that we'll see in the 2017 reports in 2018. Today's item will separate out. It's about 2016. We have to keep focused on that. And so in that respect, the recycled output trend line for the last 4 or 5 years has basically been flat. There hasn't been a continuous and meaningful improvement in that. And so we're standing by our recommendation to the director, that option 1 that Fareed spoke of.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks, everybody, for your comments today. You know, we have these 3 EPR programs in California. They're all unique. They are not the easiest programs to administer. In many cases, they have a lot of complexities. The statutes are still relatively new to California, so there's ambiguities. But we're learning, and I think we're becoming increasingly sophisticated in our administration of these programs. And I think as a group, collectively, the administration and the stakeholders are becoming increasingly sophisticated in how we plan and implement these programs. So I'm encouraged by that overall. I will say with respect to today's item, I again am familiar with it, supportive, and will review this and make a final decision. With respect to your comments, you know, it is maybe from your perception not fair, or although you didn't exactly use that word, to sort of break it up, but it is explicitly what the law requires of me. So I'll have to make that consideration. Okay, thanks.